Martha's story, guys, would be really interesting. If they made that, it'd be really interesting to have seen this whole thing through her perspective. Maybe that's how this should have been released first. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, guys. It's time to talk about Baby Reindeer.
Coldstream.
Alright, what we're going to talk about is a lot of different topics because there is so much in that show to unpack. Off the bat, in terms of production, that show is a masterpiece. We'll unpack that later on. First thing that I'm going to do here is go through a list of topics that we're going to cover in this video. Alright, so let's get started on that. We are going to look at production standard, the writing of the show, rose-coloured glasses and how one perceives life the way they want to perceive it. The intersection of very specific types of people that were required to make this show. Okay. By the way, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. There you go. Done. If you've not seen Baby Reindeer and you are going to watch it, stop this video here because it's full of spoilers. Okay, we're going to talk about the whole thing. Actors' performances, we're going to cover that. How amazing was Martha? Let's just say it. I mean, my God. I think her name is Jessica. Right. The things Martha was doing. Okay. The producer guy and what he was doing. The father's story. Addiction to stress. Addiction to chaos. Addiction to like discomfort. All right. Did he make the actors look like the people in real life? Is that part of what he was trying to do? Is there any good from this? Like, can we find good in what's happened? All right. Also, I just want to mention, of course, that this is the most LGBTQ show or exposure to LGBTQ that I've ever had, and that is something in itself that's like unique. Okay, so those are the topics. Now I'm bound to by the end of this I'm bound to miss things, and as a result there's a good chance that I'll make a second part. Normally I wouldn't care and I wouldn't make a second part, but with this I know that the things I'm gonna miss are things that I would want to say. So just like a repeat email from Martha, just like another communication from Martha in the same day, I myself can expect to make another video on this same thing. Alright, I'm sure I'm going to miss stuff because there's so much to cover. There are so many different layers and levels and aspects to this show that I'm definitely going to miss stuff. So I will want to either clear that up or add stuff, etc, etc, etc. All right. Also, straight off the bat, I would like to get a disclaimer out here. Okay. Of course, this show deals with very sensitive topics, extremely sensitive topics, and I am the first one to say that I am no expert in this field. I don't claim to be. I will not be giving like advice as if I'm an expert, because I'm not. I'm just a regular viewer of a show. I found it to be interesting and amazing. It speaks to a lot of parts of society today. And I'm making a review of it and discussing the show. All right. In terms of the sensitive topics that are involved in this show, guys, that's not me. I am no expert. I expect to make mistakes in this. So if and when I do make mistakes on these very sensitive topics, please forgive me. Okay. If you are one to be triggered or potentially could be triggered by the topics in this show, or in this what I'm about to cover, if there is even the slightest risk of you being triggered, I would rather you not watch this video. Okay, so just watch something else on TikTok. Well, not TikTok. Watch something else on YouTube here, which of course won't trigger you. Okay, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. And again, I'm not an expert, so I expect mistakes to happen. I may well say the wrong thing quite easily. So massive disclaimer over here, guys. if there's risk of you getting triggered, that's not what I want. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. So it's best that you switch over to perhaps the next thing on your feed, or whatever it is you would normally watch or prefer to watch. Okay. I wrote this down. I just want to make sure I've covered everything. Yeah, I may not be sensitive if I have no knowledge of a certain thing. If there's a risk of you getting triggered or hurt, then leave this video. I don't want 1% of someone getting hurt or angry, etc. So as a result of this, video, so just play it safe and leave the video. Okay, so again, don't want to hurt nobody. I'm not an expert. Okay, and I'm just talking about the show and my thoughts and opinions. Okay, and again, I ain't perfect. I'm a human. I make mistakes. Right, I think we might be ready to get straight to the first topic, and I expect to dart around and probably cover things that I don't want to cover too soon, but I probably will. So first things first, what have I got here? Production standard. The production of this Baby Reindeer was just, in my opinion, amazing. Like, this will tie into writing, so production standard and writing. I'm going to put them together. Those I've got them down as two separate topics here, but I'm going to stick those two together. All right. So what do I mean by that? Well, the standard at which it was produced was just really good. The set design. For example, Martha's house. Martha's house appeared to be so well detailed, so well put together to fit her as a character. Like, even as if she was just a fictional character, that was done perfectly, beautifully. The fact that, of course, this was based on a real person, it gives that element of, like, you've got something to base it on. Okay, but still, it was just that by itself was like, just showed that they've gone to do this all properly. They're ticking all the boxes and they're doing the details correctly. That was just one thing. The pace of the show, it was fast moving. You were in straight away. It didn't mess about. I loved the style, his narration over things. And that, of course, ties into writing. The writing of this show was brilliant, Again, it's based on real life, so you have that as inspiration. But what's important is it can be really hard to convey things that have happened in real life in a compressed show that is, in a compressed format that is a TV show or a series. So there's a challenge in that to take the main details, take the important details, the entertaining details, and compress them into a show that is compelling but still explains the story and the events. So really impressive in terms of the writing. The pace was fantastic. And I believe that this was also a theatre show. I don't know how long for, but you can see it. You can see that this was a theatre show. I saw it specifically when he sees Martha being vulnerable. When he sees her being vulnerable, at that point, there's like a spotlight on Martha, and that spotlight was very theatre. I was like, okay, yeah, that's a very theatre style shot, because all the lights went down, just Martha's light went up, and you could really see her, and I could see that was like theatre straight away. I could see, okay, that's, without even knowing that this is based on theatre, I could see it as theatre. So very impressive. Okay, and it goes off into like the other scenes and stuff, like when he was intoxicated with that guy. Let me just get his details. So even down to the scenes when he was intoxicated with Darian, the way that was put together, the style that's used for that, really impressive, really interesting. There were so many different things that were used to convey the mindset of Donnie, Richard Gadd. So many amazing cinematic tools were used to show his mindset. Really, really impressive. And you've got to think, like, we've experienced or we've learnt about or seen a very complex show, because this is showing just one of the themes here is addiction to a certain trauma, or addiction to a certain stress, or addiction to chaos, and going round in like a cycle of destruction. And it's showing that we're able to see, oh my God, this guy, he might well be addicted to this. He might well be calling this into existence. You know, this might be something that he needs. He's chasing this. Things are getting back to equilibrium and he's creating chaos again. It's like this is the space which he wants to live in. More on that as we get to it. But for a show to use technology, to use its tools, to use writing, etc., to be able to show you that is amazing. This is a really unique story. Stories are supposed to fit into these seven templates, like these seven basically classical stories is what all stories are supposed to fit into. I'm not sure which of the classical stories this one fits into. This seems very interesting and unique. It probably does fit into one of them somewhere, but whoever knows about that, stick it in the comments. But yeah, casting, perfect. Writing, perfect. Production, perfect. Direction, perfect. Do you know what I mean? They nailed it left, right and centre. Really well produced. Like, I don't know what I would change in this. I really don't know what I would change. It was a bit weird though, how he was living with his ex-girlfriend's mum. What was that about? What happened there? Did he say he was married to his ex-girlfriend's mum? Literally married, do you reckon? Or do you reckon that was just like figuratively? Because that was weird. Writing, production standard, that's basically it until I forget that I've not mentioned something, and that's going to be in part 2. Okay, we're getting basically straight into the meat of this at this point. Rose-coloured glasses. Okay. So when people talk about having rose-coloured glasses, okay, what do they actually mean? Yeah? Shall we have a little look? A cheerful or optimistic view of things, usually without a valid basis. Now, for me, this is one of the themes of this show. It really is. One of the themes of this show is certainly rose-coloured glasses. Okay. Now, because... Open... Because she was obsessed with him. She was infatuated. She was crazy about him. Do you know what I mean? And she could only see one dimension of this guy. She could only see the version of Richard Gadd that was crazy about her. The version that was obsessed with her. Selective hearing, isn't it? There's so many different things which she just would not hear. Things which were just never said, never conveyed. But every single thing that was positive, any little tiny comment, she would make a meal out of. She would make it into a mountain. That's what she would do. Let me just go through what I've written down here. Alright, because I've got to make sure this is covered, because otherwise I want to come back and make a second video. I'm trying to avoid that. It's just going to happen. So how much of the world do we see in a way which we want to see? To what degree are we justifying circumstances for our own benefit and peace of mind? So like, we could be in an extremely toxic situation. Yeah, like maybe your boss at work is just lying to you and you know it. Your boss at work is just keeping you in a position that you don't want to be in and you know it, for example. Okay. But you justify it. You say, no, it'll happen. No, I know that X, Y, and Z is a valid reason. I know that this is going on. Things are like this. Things are like that. It'll happen, etc., etc. To what degree do we do that ourselves? Compartmentalizing thoughts in things we're comfortable with to be able to function. So we're taking things, perhaps. We're taking certain toxic things, certain fake friends or whatever, and we're twisting that, and we're compartmentalizing that thought in a place where we can cope with it. We can manage that thought now. We can go on about our day because we've got that thought and twisted it. Yeah? And that's allowed us to function for the rest of our day, week, month, year, life. I suppose at that point it becomes a delusion, a degree of which it becomes a delusion. So these thoughts become coping mechanisms, and they become escapisms for trauma and tough situations. So you're, for example, or one is in a really toxic situation, a bad situation. However, by focusing on those tiny glimmers of hope, those tiny little bits that get you through the day, for example, that's your escapism. That's your way out of the trauma. That's your way out of the tough situation. And I suppose to a degree, don't we all do that? Especially when you're going through a tough situation, you've got to look at the positives. That's what people say. Look at the positives. There's a silver lining, all the rest of it. Yeah? But it's interesting because it's that which is just like, it's turned up really high, perhaps, in Martha, where maybe her trauma is so huge that whenever these tiny little glimmers come through, that in fact becomes her entire reality. Do you know what I mean? When the trauma has become so big that it's perhaps never ending, and so it's basically just taking over reality now. When you're getting your tiny little bit of your coping mechanism, which of course in her case is compliments from Richard Gadd, compliments from the person who she's stalking, or attention from the person who she's stalking. That's what she craves and needs. And that's her escape from the here and now. And that'll see her through. A little bit of that will see her through the next 3 months. Or just messaging this person, knowing that it's read, etc., will get her through X amount of time. Also, Richard Gadd mentions that he was being seen in a way he wanted to be seen in. So he wanted to be seen as like a very masculine man, as like funny. She would say things like, oh, you got such strong arms, big hands, or whatever else. Great jawline. So these two were feeding each other's egos to a degree, or at least she was feeding his ego. And she was also hearing that he was feeding hers, when in fact, of course, he wasn't really. Or if he was, it was through pity, through mercy. And that in itself is interesting, like being nice. Let me add that. Being nice and not genuine. We'll talk about that because that's what started this, isn't it? That's what blew this so far out of proportion. That's why he's got a series, really. But anyway, we'll come on to that. Yeah. So these two at this point, he needed to be seen a certain way, as a masculine man. She wanted somebody to be able to communicate with all the time, latch onto. Somebody who would throw them crumbs her way and she'd live off those for as long as possible. These two were kind of made for each other in a way. They really were. And I'll say it now before I forget. Reason why they made for each other is because he was extremely patient with her. He could have dobbed her in really early. He was patient. Also, he was nice to her, like merciful, like paying her the odd compliment, letting her be that company, or he was being her company in that pub every day. Yeah, he didn't have to do that. Maybe if he was his genuine self, he would have done that. Maybe if he was just going to be the guy who says, go away, just get out. I can't bother with this. And of course, eventually he does, doesn't he? When things start hotting up. But for a long period, he was bang on the right guy for the situation. Yeah? Even like the circumstance, look, she didn't even have to come to his house. She could be at his work for his full shift. How many people have jobs really where somebody can just come in and sit there for the whole shift? It's not really that common. So not only is he in the right job, but he's nice guy, merciful, kind of wants to be seen that way too, so he's got his own needs. He's entertaining it. You know, he's not getting her arrested straight away. There's loads of reasons. And to what degree is he broken himself, where he, like, kind of craves this stress, keeps this stress around, keeps problems around, unsolved? There's arguments to say that if all your problems went away right here, right now, this second, it may well feel a little bit odd. I suppose we're all used to having problems and problems being around. If you had a life where all your problems are gone right now, that in itself becomes a problem, because that's a bit weird, isn't it? Is it not? Would we be able to get used to having no problems after having a life where there's a constant problem somewhere? Do you know what I mean? It's very complicated. Okay. She latched on to every crumb he gave her because she wanted to or needed the same. Basically, we've covered that, innit? Yeah, they both fit in quite perfectly together with each other, at least for a good period of time. Now, I just want to talk about this being nice and not genuine. All right, so had she come in and he not given her that tea that he offered, had he not done that, which he didn't have to do, but that's him. I'd say that's him being genuine. That's just what he would do. All right. But after that point, after he realizes, wait a minute, this is a little bit crazy, she is kind of like spending a bit too much time here. And of course, we know that there is going to be medical conditions here on both sides. Yeah. Maybe with every character in this show, to a degree, there's going to be some, there's medical things, there's psychological things that may well need looking at. And it's probably more common than we think. But at the point where he's thinking, this is a bit weird. This is not what I signed up for. I just gave you a tea. Now things are going a bit strange. Now, he could have easily, I think, just said that. He could have just said that, like, look, okay, this is a bit weird. This is not what I signed up for. However, it was too late, wasn't it? Because him offering her that tea to her was like 3 years of relationship done. It was already too late to back out. And if you are going to back out, you're going to have some trouble getting back out of there. So he could have been more genuine in the fact that this is weird now, love. I'm sorry. This is a bit strange now, this situation. This is not what I want. I was just giving you a cup of tea because you looked a little bit, down on yourself maybe. And it's kind of a bar thing to do, I suppose, is to give you a little something, a little pick-me-up if you're looking really down. And it wasn't anything else. But unfortunately, too far gone. Next, I think we're moving through this faster than I expected. Or is it slower than I expected? I can't tell how long this recording is at this point. Oh no, I can. This is right on time. The intersection of very specific types of people. I've already touched upon this, but let me just get through this over here. The intersection of very specific types of people made this show possible. Like, she was a stalker, but she had to meet a generous, patient guy. Also, he not only had to be a victim with a compelling story, but also had to be a performer, a writer, who is able to convert the subtleties and complexity which appears in this show. I'm sure there are countless victims who'd never be able to express this. So it's like there's a Venn diagram. Okay, if you could imagine a Venn diagram, okay, and just put this together. So you've got writer, actor, performer. You've got victim of this situation. In fact, he's a victim of two different situations, really. Stalking, that's another circle. Another circle is going to be SA. Another one, you could even add grooming. Another one, media industry. Yeah. And add another one, father also has history of this. And then we can add on the fact that he's bi, but closeted. So all these different angles and layers, and then on top of it, he's able to communicate this situation and in a way that could be understood by the masses. So it's in an entertainment TV show. So it's such a complex thing, but can be understood by the masses. And for me, that just takes a very specific mix, a very specific situation for this show to even exist, really. And then the fact that this is actually a true story is just like crazy. As mentioned, I'm sure there are countless victims out there who would struggle to even express what happened, and this guy's been able to put it into a show. And to, those victims out there, if I could say anything, it's just like, communicate what you can, get it off your chest, speak to people, speak to who you can speak to, get help. People are definitely out there, people are definitely here to help people who've been through things like this. And I'm talking about both sides, not just Richard Gads' side. If you know somebody who seems like perhaps they are stalking somebody, maybe they can't see it, or maybe you are a stalker and you can see it, yeah? If there's an ability to help somebody get better, it's important to take that opportunity if it's possible. I'm a big believer on forgiving and forgiveness, where possible, of course. Maybe there are things that cannot be forgiven and stuff like that. But yeah, if there are people who need help, help them. Or if that's you, then get yourself out there, seek help, get it off your chest, forgive yourself. You know what they say, that mountain you've been carrying all this time is only one that you were supposed to climb. It's good to get things off your chest, forgive yourself first and foremost. That goes out to everybody. And if you can, forgive others. However, justice is also important, so do that too. Back on topic. Okay, the performances. All right, I've got to cover all the performances here. Well, for me, who was outstanding? I'm going to just cover the outstanding performances, and I think you all know what I'm going to say. Let's go for Richard Gadd. All right, so this is his true story. This all happened to him. So he plays Donnie, the main character, and it actually happened to him. So he is reliving what actually happened to him. This, if it is believed, is what actually happened. Crazy. Like, mind-blowing, stunning stuff. These may well be, in fact, I'm sure one of them is the most traumatic thing that's happened to the guy in his life. And he's able to perform that in a show. He's able to act that out. Like, don't forget, when he's acting out the scenes in this show, there's about 20 people in the room watching. Like, it seems like, you know, of course, when you watch show, you forget that there's not a whole crowd of people in that room seeing that happening. And not only were they seeing this happening, they're like, this is real, this actually happened. What a performance. What a performance from him. And then you've got the mind-blowing Jessica Gunning, Martha. Richard Gads says that he had her in mind from the very beginning. I don't know much about her, but I feel like we're probably going to see a lot more of her on screen going forward. I don't know if this is her breakthrough role, but I think it may well be. Her performance was stunning. She was able to play this role in such a way that you ended up hating her. Like, either hating her or feeling sorry for her, or, you know, just such a mixture of emotions she was able to evoke, and that takes so much skill. It's just amazing. There's one guy that comes to mind that did the same thing, and he was in EastEnders, and in fact recently I've seen him in Andor, Star Wars, and I don't know if I'm going to see him in this. There he is, Alex Ferns. Right, this guy, I'm telling you, EastEnders, yeah. I might actually want to have a look at this, how he went from EastEnders to Star Wars, because that's mad in itself. But this guy, he played an abusive husband, like a really abusive husband, okay. But his performance was so good. Alex Ferns, EastEnders. Let me see if it gives any images. There, look at that. Look at that face. He just... everything about what he did, every single part of his performance was amazing. It was so good. He was so convincing that he would get abuse on the streets. He would get abuse on the streets, guys. That's how good his performance was. But this is it. This is what's important. Of course, people have got to understand that this is acting, you know. And even the person in real life, like, you know, don't, if you can avoid making people's life hard and, you know, making people's life hell, if you know what I mean, just avoid it. Just don't do it, you know. Don't hurt people and don't wish bad on people and all the rest. Did I just lose that picture that I wanted? No, this one. So yeah, like I'm against the whole, you know, contacting the real Martha. You know what I mean. We're going to cover that. Yes, so her performance, probably one of the best I've seen in the past like 10 years. I'm going to say that, maybe longer. Amazing. Right. Before we cover that, let me just move that topic down. Where should I put that? I'll put that over here. Let's put that there. Right, let's go on to the things that Martha was doing. So first of all, of course, there's the whole thing about she was there in the bar every single day. It was interesting that he would offer her a drink, which she would then sit and nurse for the rest of the day. She wouldn't pay for it, and then she'd leave. But she'd make out like she was busy. Isn't that interesting? She would make out like she knew people. She would talk like and mention names like, oh, I just was working with Steve earlier. You know what I mean? And then how things escalated, and she starts to sit on the bus stop. Guys, the bus stop thing for me was like wild. She would sit there and she would manage to evade the lady who was living at the house, who owned the house, ex-girlfriend's mum. So she'd managed to evade her But she would like sit out there all day, hurl abuse. Did she hurl abuse at him at this point? Or was she complimenting him still? I think she was complimenting him still. But she would just make these two comments on when he's on his way out in the morning and when he comes back at night, and it could be like night when he gets back. Can you imagine that? Like in real life? Just wild. And then things went down the negative route when she started like heckling him in his performances, saying strange things at his performance. Like, let's not forget, there's a degree of illness here, isn't there? That's a thing. So, but if you could look at it as a character, perhaps. But yeah, it was just, the way this progressed was just really interesting. And then, then she would be waiting outside the pub, or he'd bump into her randomly, was it? She'd be outside the pub and at the bus stop, and she would shout things, and she would share things with other people who would come to the pub. Media, like, which he had. What was interesting that I find was that he also depicted the staff at the pub as being like dodgy, and things that have come out from the one who is accused of being the real Martha have suggested as well that the staff at that pub were quite shifty. There are like some things that came out, things that were dodgy about that staff, so that's something. Oh yeah, and by the way, I predicted that she was recording stuff. I was like ahead of that one, but like not very far ahead. Basically, when he came to like entrap her, because things got desperate, which I understand, because she started to mess with his family. So that's a mad escalation. You know what I mean? Like, she started to ring his dad. His dad was hilarious. But anyway, quickly. When he tries to entrap her, then she like, I don't know, she says what she's got to, yeah, she does. She says her thing, disappears and runs off. And then it was like, oh, well, that's it. It's done. He's got her. This will get her into jail or whatever. But I was like, no, how do we know if she's not recorded that? How do we know how switched on or not she is? And she had it recorded. And interestingly enough, the one who is being accused of being Martha in real life has mentioned on one of their communications, which are being made public, well, they're being posted publicly by the accused, if you know what I mean. They also record things. They mentioned that people think I'm thick, etc. I record everything on a dictaphone, so basically a voice recorder. That's interesting in itself, is it not? It is very interesting in itself. And while we are here, of course, the dad. So she starts ringing the dad, and the things that the dad was saying, no mercy. He was just saying it straight as it is. And it's kind of like what if Richard had done that? What if Richard had gone that straight? But I feel like once you're involved here, that's it. Once you're involved, you're involved. You know, you're getting it. And I think that's what had happened here. It was a case of he was trying to be nice, whereas she had selected her prey, you know. I mean, again, it's like, it's a weird kind of prey, isn't it? It's like she wants to love him, but this is too much. So complex. Right, so there's that. Now then, the producer guy, Darian. Where did I put the cast? Did I put the cast somewhere? If I go back a few times, that's Andor, which I recommend. Baby Reindeer cast. Baby I'm going to spell it wrong, aren't I? It's Darian, isn't it? Darian. Okay, so where are we? Let's get back to where we were. Okay, so Darian, right. Now this is interesting. So what's happened here is how it started off, of course, Richard Gadd has his ambitions. He wants to be a successful writer. So what does he do? He manages to get in touch with somebody who is successful in his industry. Let's call it a mentor, yeah? And that mentor promises him success, or at least a taste of it, or at least some success, yeah? Or at least direction, yeah? So there are things here being promised by this producer. But of course, the producer is dragging his heels and making it into a let's be friends thing. And there is that culture, isn't there, where you tend to work with people you like, let's say. You tend to work with friends. Now, what I find interesting about that is if you're working with people you like, fine, great, I get it. But at the same time, is that necessarily the most talented person? Is that necessarily the best person for the job? Just because you like that person, that's one thing. But what do you do if somebody you dislike would genuinely do a better job? I suppose they don't get the opportunity. And that opens people up and opens situations up for this, where let's be friends. Let's be friends. Let's make friends. Let's be friends forever. Let's be fake friends. All the rest of that. And it's all for one person? Both people? It leaves it open for corruption. Okay. Let me unpack that a little bit. Okay. So how is this corrupt? It's corrupt because Richard Gadd then gets in through the back door. Let's say not on merit. He gets in because he knows this guy and they're friends. Not necessarily on merit. This is a who you know, not what you know. That's his side. Other side of the corruption here is Richard Gadd is opening, well, not intentionally, but just him in this example. Richard Gadd is opening up this situation for a case of I'll do things for you, which in most places is just basically sucking up. I'll basically plug that gap that you need plugging, yeah. And as a result, you give me what I want. Yeah, it seems to me like you want a friend to get intoxicated with. Fair deal. I'll give you that. It's not what I want, but that'll be the cost that I pay. I'll give you that. You give me the career. There's something which is just not right about that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not organic. They're not actually friends because they both want something from this. Do you know what I mean? Being friends organically is the way. And then business relationships, progressions should be off merit. That's the right way to do these things, isn't it? If not, this is where things like this happen. This is where people are like, give and take. Yeah? And that's what was happening here. There was a degree of give and take. I mean, Richard was coming along giving that company, expecting to get professional work and experience, which he was getting little to none of, according to the show. Whereas Darian was getting what he wanted. Darian was getting that company, which he wanted. And of course, as we know, was doing much more than that when Richard was unconscious. And what's interesting is like a lot of these abusers, they just sweep it under the rug, don't they? They sweep it under the rug. Like when he attacked him, he got up and carried on like nothing happened. And that's one thing you'll find. And I think you'll find that in a lot of different levels, from low levels of abuse, yeah, where it's just somebody at work, let's say, to the biggest levels yeah, they just sweep it under the rug. They don't address it and they carry on. It's wild, isn't it? It's so crazy. And I've seen that in like a lot of different shows, I suppose. And yeah, what I've written down here is, to what extent are we all groomed and lied to for the benefit of others? How many times have you gone against your best judgment and then ended up doing something on the basis of a promise, and then that promise never came to fruition? The other person never held their part of the deal. Or maybe they did, but the cost to you was too big, unfair, not clear, wasn't the agreement. When things are agreed, contracted, crystal clear, and then you're doing what you've got to do, and then you get the other side of the deal, fair enough. But when maybe one side is lying to you, maybe, I mean, even the deal itself is a little bit weird if it's a certain weird kind of deal. But in situations where I'm going to be his mate and maybe he'll get me into writing for this TV show, it might happen, it might pay off. Let me go 15, 16 more times. I need this payoff. Plus, I'm spending time with the guy. I'm getting like bits of experience here and there. I'm getting into the circle, into that whole communication style, and I'm learning tiny things. Let me keep going. That's how it works, isn't it? Wild. The levels. Then you've got the father's story, and I've got to say, how powerfully was that delivered? How powerfully was that delivered? That there was some genius writing. I mean, you've got to have a look at the build-up. The dad is such like a butch character, such a strong butch character, yeah. Amazing character. And then you realise, oh my God, Martha is going to tell the parents what's been happening to Richard. And it's going to be crazy if she gets there first. It is. But I feel like actually in hindsight it wouldn't have been crazy because of the way the father reacted. It would not have been crazy. It would have been really good, I think. That's a really amazing father in that sense. Like that's amazing what happened there. That moment. But yeah, it comes out and the information comes out and it's just so delicate and amazing in itself. And just the father's story. One thing about this show, which for me is an indicator of a great show, is you could do spin-offs of this. You could do his transsexual girlfriend's story. You could do the father's story. You could do Darian's story. Martha's story. Martha's story, guys, would be really interesting. If they made that, it'd be really interesting to have seen this whole thing through her perspective. Maybe that's how this should have been released first. Maybe that would have made this that touch better. If we had gone through Martha's story first and then do Richard's story. Do you know what I mean? Richard Gads, Donnie. That would have been pretty interesting. You know, like when they show Martha's story, even her house isn't a mess. Do you know what I mean? That's not what she sees. So when we see her story, we see it through her reality. That would have been, just the more I think about that, actually, that would have been beautiful. Maybe you could still do that. Yeah. And then, like, proper loved up. Really loved up. And we'd see the things that she thought she was receiving from him, the compliments, the conversations, maybe she's seeing that he's inviting her back every day. He wants her there. He wants her at that bus stop. He needs her there. That would have been really cool. Okay, now then, this next part, guys, it's going to involve Do you guys know the story of the princess and the mattress and the pea or something, guys? Do you know about that? Let me just see what I can find. Give me a second. Princess and the pea? It's that, isn't it? Who's assisted? The prince's mother tests her by burying a pea under a huge stack of mattresses, then ordering the woman to sleep on the mattresses. No. Moral? Don't judge others based on their appearances. The young woman is found looking unkempt, so the queen assumes that she is no excuse. No, this is off topic. This is not what I was expecting. Okay, let me just go back then. Did I just lose that picture again? Okay, we'll keep this one. Now this, okay, so this we've kind of touched upon because I've spoken about being addicted to discomfort, okay, or similar, okay. And this is kind of what this next part talks about, okay, for this next topic. Stress addiction or discomfort addiction, toxic relationships, how the show was able to show that someone is addicted to chaos. So let's just talk about a little bit of that. Toxic relationships. You get people where they say, oh, I always attract this kind of person. They always treat me like this, like bad. They always treat me bad and I always attract this, like a rough kind of person, blah, blah, blah. I always attract drama and all this, yeah? So that's interesting. There's this suggestion that your partner not only gives you all the good things that you want in a relationship, yeah? But they also provide you with the level of stress and the level of discomfort that you need. And if that wasn't there, you wouldn't be satisfied with your partner. I find that both weird, but it kind of makes sense in a way. It links back to what I was saying earlier, like if all your problems were gone, that'd be weird. To a degree, we are conditioned and used to discomfort and issues being around. I think, at least. But then there's the argument that there's always problems, isn't it? That's why they say being rich don't make you happy and stuff. Just for example, everyone has problems. So I suppose we probably never experience having no problems. I suppose the point is, though, that people get addicted to a degree of toxicity, chaos, etc. And that is something that this show talks about because his ex-girlfriend says, you've always got chaos around you. You're always attracting chaos. So it's like when things are going on track, but he goes towards the problem and he feeds that problem more. You know what I mean? And we see him doing that in cycles, in circles in this show. Like there are times when Martha is gone, but now she's gone, he's trying to work her out like this. She's this massive mystery. So this is where he's now addicted to her, where he needs that discomfort, he needs that issue to be consistent and to be there. And that's really interesting. We'll move on. Did he make them look like the real people? So this links into the fact that people have now gone away and found, potentially, the real people. Okay. And if it is to be believed that these are the real people, the ones that have appeared, then I think he made them look like the real people. At least the way they looked back then when the story happened. It's a bit crazy that, in a sense, because was he leaving this open for us to find them? Should he have hid their identity a bit more? Is that a bit crazy? Put it in the comments. Because they look like the real people, the ones who are being accused of being the real people, at least. Like, a lot of them have been found. Darian, the girlfriend, Martha. Who else? I feel like I'm missing somebody. But that's basically all of them, isn't it? So I think he did make them look like the real people, guys. It's a bit wild, that, isn't it? But I think he did. And why did he? So part of this show is kind of admitting that Richard Gadd has this thing about going through trauma over and over again. Yeah? Part of this show does say that. I'm pretty sure that's correct. My opinion, if I'm wrong, yeah. So if he does go in these cycles where he needs to attract this over and over and over again, yeah, then interestingly, him playing the role, him literally reenacting these traumatic experiences, is giving him that fix, is it not? That's one thing. Now the show is done, the show is successful, but things are still going a bit weird. Now people are reaching out and finding the people who are potentially the ones accused of it. The guy who plays Darian, apparently that guy is like stepped down from his position in the media industry, if it's him. So it's a bit wild like that, you know? And to what degree is this then feeding back into that need for trauma, that need for chaos, which Richard has? I feel like it really is feeding back into it. So yeah, very interesting. Now the current situation, all right. I've kind of touched upon it. The similarities with real life. Okay, so let's have a look at the current situation, the aftermath of the show, similarities with real life. Is Richard Gadd going through this trauma due to an addiction to it? And what was that whole thing about the abuse of a deaf child? Okay, now I haven't got all the details of the abuse of that deaf child. Okay, but you know, there are things that people are finding on the internet which, according to the real Martha, should have been deleted by Google, but haven't been deleted by Google, so they're still there. By now, I'm sure people have downloaded them and got records of them. And yeah, it does link back to a previous case with somebody, some high level person. And I'm sure it's mentioned in the actual show, like the status of the person who was the previous victim. And what else? Things, and other things that have been mentioned. It's like multiple mobile phones has been mentioned. The use of a recording device that's always on, or at least at the right times it's on. That's been mentioned. The person who they think is the real Martha actually appears to write in the same style as Martha. That's like spelling errors, multiple messages, like, you know, like when someone double texts you, this is like triple or quintuple texting, if you know what I mean. It's all happening, and it's all like live. Things are happening like now, you know, updates happening like even today. So it's very hot right now. It's pretty wild. I don't know where this is going to go, but there seems to still be a lot in it. And again, a story from Martha's perspective, an actual Netflix show from Martha's perspective, could be really interesting. Okay. Is there any good in this? Now, there's people who argue things like, do bad things really exist? Everything that happens has got good in it? Or is this just the whole blowing up the silver lining thing? Is that being blown out of proportion? So let's look into that. So let's see. Oh, these are good things, yeah. Richard Gadd has finally got his big break, hasn't he? Before this, did anyone know who he was? Anyone know his name? Not me. And now a lot of people do. He got his big break. The story of the father maybe that lets people who are of that age talk about traumas that they've been through. Maybe they can open up. Maybe they'll know that they'll be well received. There's help out there. Martha. People like Martha. People who are aware of people like Martha. Maybe they'll come out and help. You know, maybe they'll be reaching out, helping. People are more aware of this. It's brought massive awareness to stalking. I didn't really know like how it works, what it is, the levels of it, different types of it. Now I do. You know, so it's educated a lot of people. The producer guy, is this him getting justice? Has he got justice? Would this kind of behaviour in the media industry get looked at? You know? I hope that there are whistleblowers in there who are protecting people. You've got to bear that in mind. That's what's happening here. It's protection of people. If somebody's blowing a whistle on something like this going on, you're saving somebody. GF has shed light on these situations. Yeah, so basically these people, the people in this, like even the girlfriend situation, is where people are not like, I mean, she was looking to date, wasn't she? She was looking to date for like a long time. And how many people go through that? That's a very unique, complex situation in itself there. You know, that's interesting. Again, that's a whole story in itself. A lot of these situations will get reported where applicable. People may reassess their circumstances. Maybe friends who are watching it happen will intervene. So yeah, that's what I've covered. Okay. And I think that's basically everything apart from whatever I've forgotten. And we'll remember after this is over and we'll want to add into a part 2. So that really is basically all of it, guys. And I think I will catch you in the next one. So for now, first things first, hit subscribe, hit like, hit share. There is so much on this Baby Reindeer. There are so many levels to it. The staff on the production of this have really been able to get us into the mind frame of a victim of this kind of thing, and I suppose to a degree into the mind frame of the person who is making this happen. Kind of making it happen. Like, we're all going to agree that there certainly is, you know, some sensitivity here. There's mental illness, perhaps, and things that could be looked at to help people have a better time in society, you know. Yeah, I mean, we'd probably need like an outlet for this kind of thing. Like, let's say Richard Gadd is not going to be the guy to ever respond or take a liking to Martha. Yeah, we're in an age of AI now. Could doctors, could medical professionals create an AI to be the one for Martha to be able to speak to? A very safe AI. Only just as a crutch, as something to be used to wean Martha off this communication. You know, we're in that age now. We're in the technology age. We should be taking advantage of this and try all the tools that we have at our disposal to help people. You know, that's the bottom line, isn't it? But anyway, guys, thanks for watching once again, and I will catch you in the next one. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching Baby Reindeer, and I hope anybody who is even close to any of the sensitive topics or situations that are covered here, I hope that you're able to get help and communicate. Just talking really helps and should help, and go to your loved ones. And, you know, if one doesn't take it well or correctly, go to another one. But yeah, don't think all people are the same. They're not. Give people chances, forgive, and really seek help and save yourself, save others. That's the most important thing. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.